After Trungpa Rinpoche died and the Vajra regent became the head of Vajradhatu, or Shambhala at that time, Khyentse Rinpoche invited Sakyong to come study with him in Nepal. So in the fall of 1987, he left with a few of his kusung to go study at Chechen Monastery in Kathmandu, Nepal, where Khyentse Rinpoche was living. And that was very heartening for all of us. That at that point, the Sakyong had mostly been trained by his father, and now that his father had passed on, he was going to receive the teachings from a great master who was his father's teacher as well. So there was a lot of joy around that. And I had the good fortune, being one of his kusung, to go over in the winter of 1988 and spend time in the Sakyong's household, and the very good fortune to be around that whole process of him receiving teachings from His Holiness. And I think at some very simple level, it was basically that every day he would get up, Sakyong would get up, and he didn't speak Tibetan in those days. And he would study Tibetan with Lama Ujun, who happened to be one of Khyentse Rinpoche's main attendants, who Trungpa Rinpoche asked some years before if Khyentse Rinpoche could let him be with him. And so again, there was this connection. So Lama Ujun was with the Sakyong teaching him Tibetan in Kathmandu. And then they would go over to the monastery, and the Sakyong would receive teachings directly from Khyentse Rinpoche. And so every day this would happen. It was a routine, and a very simple routine, but at the same time, a very profound situation. And by the time I got there, he had been there for some months. But I could tell at that point when I saw the Sakyong that there was something shifting in him that I couldn't exactly describe, but being in the situation where he could receive these teachings from Khyentse Rinpoche, something was happening. Khyentse Rinpoche was, even though he was an amazing teacher, he had a simplicity and kindness about him. He would often sit on sort of a daybed, and he'd have a tartan blanket often, and he would give the teachings to Sakyong and other young Rinpoches. And every once in a while I had the good fortune to be able to go in and see Khyentse Rinpoche. And once, early on in my visit, I went over and it was introduced, and he took his very large, amazing hand and just placed it on my head. And I felt like some kind of electric transmission was happening. But not in a extraordinary way, in a very earthy way, which is what I always felt being in the presence of Khyentse Rinpoche. Some unusual being, but very human and very kind, at the same time imparting the profundity of what he'd received from his teachers. What actually happened, by being in his presence, something was being transmitted non-conceptually, not through teachings of the Dharma words, but by his actual authentic presence, which is in some ways as profound as the words themselves, because he's manifesting what an enlightened being is, what a wisdom being is, what a human being is in their fullest earthly manifestation. Well, I would say this is an amazing opportunity for the Shambhala community, personally speaking, to continue our good fortune of the connection with the Khyentse Rinpoches. And now with the Khyentse Yangsi Rinpoche coming, it's very exciting because even though we've never lost the connection, because it's in our heart and it's in our mind and it's in the practices that Khyentse Rinpoche gave us, which are the essence. Now we actually have an emanation of the next Khyentse Rinpoche that we can serve, that we can be around, that we can enjoy and celebrate with, that our lineages are intersected, and he can help us discover the nature of our mind, just like his previous emanation did and our other teachers. So it's a whole continuing of an intersection between our own lineages. It's extremely exciting for those of us in Shambhala.